It was Christmas Eve. Snow fell softly, blanketing the world in a serene white. The air was crisp and the night was filled with a magical hush. Rudolph felt a bubbling excitement in his chest. He loved Christmas Eve. It was the night when he and his fellow reindeer would soar through the skies, delivering joy and presents to children all around the world. The sleigh was ready, gleaming under the moonlight, packed with gifts wrapped in colorful paper and shiny bows. The reindeer were all harnessed up, their bells jingling softly as they moved. It was time to deliver presents. Rudolph trotted over to the sleigh, his hooves crunching in the fresh snow. He could feel the anticipation in the air, the excitement of the other reindeer as they prepared for the night's journey. He took his place at the front, his red nose glowing brightly, lighting up the path ahead. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cold, crisp air. He felt a surge of determination. This was his moment. He wanted to make a big impression, to show everyone just how capable he was. He crouched down, muscles tensing, ready to leap into the sky. With all his might, Rudolph pushed off the ground. He wanted a big jump, a leap that would send him soaring high above the treetops. He imagined the wind rushing past his ears, the stars twinkling around him as he led the sleigh through the night. Rudolph jumped, but something went wrong. Instead of soaring gracefully into the sky, Rudolph felt himself plummeting back to the ground. He landed with a thud, the impact jarring his bones. He lay there for a moment, stunned and confused. What had happened?
What was that? Rudolph looked around bewildered. He had never experienced anything like this before. Determined to try again, he got back on his feet. He flapped his hooves, trying to lift off the ground. He could feel the eyes of the other reindeer on him, their concern and confusion mirroring his own. But no matter how hard he tried, he stayed on the ground. His hooves felt heavy, and his usually buoyant spirit was weighed down by a growing sense of dread. He looked up at the sky, the stars seeming so far away now. He had always been able to fly. What was happening to him? "I can't fly!" Rudolph cried out, his voice trembling with fear. He felt a knot of panic tightening in his chest. What about Christmas Eve? What about all the children waiting for their presents? He couldn't let them down. He couldn't let Santa down. But as he stood there, feeling more scared and worried than he ever had before, he didn't know what to do. The night that had started with so much promise was turning into a nightmare. Rudolph's big oops was more than just a fall. It was a crisis that threatened to ruin Christmas for everyone.
Santa Claus checked his list. He meticulously went through each name, ensuring that every child had been accounted for. The list was long, but Santa was determined to make sure no one was left out. He double-checked the names, making sure everything was perfect for the big night. He whistled for the reindeer. The sound echoed through the crisp, cold air, signaling the start of their magical journey. The reindeer, always eager and ready, perked up at the familiar sound. They knew it was time to get into position and prepare for the long night ahead.
"Ready to go, team?" he called. His voice was filled with excitement and anticipation. The reindeer responded with enthusiastic nods and prancing hooves. They had been waiting for this moment all year, and now it was finally here. The reindeer gathered by the sleigh, except for Rudolph. The absence of the red-nosed reindeer was immediately noticeable. The other reindeer looked around, puzzled, wondering where their bright-nosed friend could be. "Where is that red-nosed rascal?" Santa wondered. Suddenly Donner ran up. His eyes were wide with urgency, and his breath came in quick, short bursts. Something was clearly wrong. He was out of breath. Donner had been running as fast as he could to deliver the news. His sides heaved with the effort, and he struggled to catch his breath before speaking. "Santa! Rudolph! He can't fly!" Donner gasped. The words came out in a rush, each one filled with worry and concern. The other reindeer exchanged anxious glances, their excitement quickly turning to fear.
Santa's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Rudolph, the reindeer who had always led the way with his bright red nose, unable to fly? It was unthinkable. Without wasting another moment, Santa rushed to find Rudolph.
"He can't fly? On Christmas Eve? This was a disaster!" Santa's mind raced with the implications. How would they deliver all the presents without Rudolph leading the way? The night was already upon them, and there was no time to lose. Santa rushed to Rudolph. He found him sitting quietly, his head hanging low. Rudolph looked up as Santa approached, his eyes filled with sadness and frustration. "I'm sorry, Santa," he said softly. "I don't know what's wrong. I just can't seem to get off the ground." Santa knelt beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. We'll figure this out, Rudolph. We always do. With determination in his heart, Santa began to think of a solution. The night was still young, and the magic of Christmas was on their side. Don't worry, Rudolph, we'll find a way. First, they tried a trampoline. Santa thought it might remind Rudolph how to bounce into the air. Rudolph climbed onto the trampoline, he jumped up and down, but no flying. Instead, Rudolph bounced too high. He flew off the trampoline, he landed in a snowdrift.
The elves laughed.
Rudolph blushed. That didn't work. Next, Santa took Rudolph to see some penguins.
Penguins know all about flying, Santa explained. Well, gliding anyway. The penguins waddled over, they flapped their little wings. They showed Rudolph how to glide on his belly. Rudolph tried to copy them. He slid on the ice. He spun in a circle, but he didn't fly. The penguins shook their heads. Even they couldn't help.
Time was running out. Santa started to worry. The clock was ticking, and the big night was fast approaching. Santa paced back and forth in his cozy workshop, glancing at his watch every few seconds. His usual jolly demeanor was replaced with a furrowed brow and a look of deep concern. The reindeer were ready, the sleigh was packed, but something was missing. Santa couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he knew they needed a solution, and fast. Then a little elf named Sparkle had an idea. Sparkle was known among the elves for her creativity and quick thinking. She had a knack for coming up with solutions when things seemed impossible. As she watched Santa pacing, a light bulb moment struck her. Her eyes lit up and a wide smile spread across her face. She knew exactly what they needed to do to save Christmas.
Rudolph loves his shiny nose, right? Sparkle exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. She knew that Rudolph's glowing red nose was not just a unique feature but also a source of pride and joy for him. It was what made him special and helped guide Santa's sleigh through the darkest nights. Sparkle's mind raced as she thought about how they could use this to their advantage.
She said. Sparkle gathered the other elves around and shared her brilliant idea. They listened intently, nodding in agreement as she explained her plan. The workshop buzzed with excitement as the elves realized that Sparkle's idea might just be the solution they were looking for. They couldn't wait to get started.
Maybe if we make him a sparkly harness, it will remind him of his nose, Sparkle suggested, her eyes twinkling with hope. The other elves exchanged glances and then burst into enthusiastic chatter. They loved the idea. A sparkly harness would not only remind Rudolph of his shiny nose, but also boost his confidence and make him feel even more special. And then, he'll remember how to fly, Sparkle continued, her voice filled with conviction. The elves nodded in agreement. They knew that Rudolph's confidence was key to his ability to fly and lead the sleigh. With a sparkly harness, he would feel unstoppable, and they could save Christmas after all.
The elves got to work. The workshop was a flurry of activity as the elves gathered materials and set up their workstations. They were determined to make the best harness ever, one that would shine as brightly as Rudolph's nose. The air was filled with the sounds of tools clinking, scissors snipping, and elves chatting excitedly as they worked together. They used glitter and glue. The elves carefully selected the finest glitter and the strongest glue to ensure the harness would be both beautiful and durable. They worked with precision, adding just the right amount of sparkle to each piece. The workbench was covered in a shimmering array of colors, and the elves' hands were soon dusted with glitter. They made a harness for Rudolph. It was a masterpiece, crafted with love and care. The harness sparkled in the light, each piece meticulously placed to create a dazzling effect. The elves stepped back to admire their work, proud of what they had accomplished. They knew that this harness would make Rudolph feel special and remind him of his unique gift. It was sparkly and bright. Rudolph loved it. When they presented the harness to Rudolph, his eyes widened with delight. He pranced around, showing off his new accessory, and the other reindeer cheered. The harness not only reminded him of his shiny nose, but also filled him with a renewed sense of confidence. With a joyful heart, Rudolph took to the skies, ready to lead Santa's sleigh and save Christmas. Section 6. The Magic of Belief.
Rudolph put on the harness.
It sparkled like 1,000 stars. He felt a surge of confidence. He remembered how much he loved flying. He remembered the feeling of the wind beneath his hooves. Rudolph took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. He believed he could fly. He took a running leap and soared into the air. Section 7. Soaring through the sky.
Rudolph flew higher and higher. He felt the Christmas magic lift him into the sky. He laughed with joy. He did it. He could fly again.
Santa watched with a wide smile. He knew they could still deliver all the presents on time.
Merry Christmas, Rudolph.
Rudolph smiled. He was so happy to be flying again. Section 8, Delivering Christmas Cheer.
Rudolph joined the other reindeer. They soared through the night sky. They delivered presents to all the good children. Rudolph's nose shone brighter than ever. He felt proud to be a part of the team. He learned an important lesson that night. Sometimes all you need is a little belief in yourself to make magic happen.
Section 9, A Christmas Eve to Remember. As the sun began to rise, Rudolph and Santa landed back at the North Pole. It had been a long night, but they had done it.
Rudolph had saved Christmas.
From that day on, Rudolph never forgot how to fly, and he always remembered the sparkly harness that reminded him of the magic within.